Have you ever been in one of those meetings where everyone's nodding along saying, yes, we absolutely need to do something about our impact on nature, but then silence? Nobody knows where to even begin. It feels massive, right? Well, you're in the right place because today we are going to break down that very first crucial step and get you from feeling overwhelmed to being on a clear, confident path. I want you to picture it. You're in a boardroom, staring at a blank whiteboard with this exact question scrawled at the top. You can feel it in the room. Everyone gets that this is important. But the problem just seems so huge, so undefined, that no one wants to be the first to pick up the pen. That feeling of being stuck? That's exactly what we're going to solve today.
Luckily, we don't have to wander through this wilderness alone. The Task Force on Nature-Related Financial Disclosures, or the TNFD for short, has basically drawn us a map. They're like that expert guide who shows up right when you're lost, handing you a clear, structured plan to find your way through this really complex territory.
And that plan? It's called the LEAP approach. It's a 4-phase process designed to assess all these nature-related issues. Now, we're not going to try and boil the ocean and cover all 4 phases today. Instead, we're going to laser focus on the one that matters most. Because honestly, if you get this first step wrong, the other 3 just don't stand a chance. So what is this all-important first step? It's called scoping. Think of this as your starting block. It's the moment where you define the boundaries of your investigation and really set your team up for success before you get totally lost in all the details. So what is scoping really? Well, the official definition calls it a quick, high-level scan. And let me tell you, the key word there is quick. This isn't some 6-month deep dive analysis. No way. The goal here is simple. It's to come up with an educated guess, a working hypothesis about where your company's biggest connections to nature might be, and then get everyone aligned on a plan before you start spending serious time and money. Okay, let's jump back into that boardroom. All of a sudden, that feeling of paralysis is gone. They've got a starting point. They're not trying to solve everything all at once. Nope, they are just focused on one thing: building that initial working hypothesis. And the way they do that is by asking a really specific set of questions.
And this right here is the fundamental question. It really breaks down into 4 key areas. First, dependencies. What do we need from nature to even operate? Then, impacts. How does our business actually affect nature? Next, risks. How could changes in the natural world hurt our bottom line? And finally, the exciting one, opportunities. Where can we innovate and create value by working with nature, not against it?
Now, that's still a pretty huge question, right? So to keep us from trying to boil the ocean, the TNFD gives us 3 filters to help channel our thinking. You can think of them like special lenses that bring the most important areas into sharp focus, making this whole task way more manageable.
The very first filter is sector, and it's pretty much the most straightforward place to start. It's all about asking, what industries are we actually playing in?
So someone grabs a marker and starts writing on that whiteboard. First question, what sectors are we and our partners in? Okay, maybe they're in food and beverage, but they realize a key supplier is in forestry. Then comes the real kicker. How much of our revenue is tied to each of those sectors? Suddenly, boom, there it is. They see that 40% of their revenue actually depends on that one forestry partner, and that instantly highlights where their biggest connection and maybe their biggest risk is. All right, next up, they apply the second filter. Value chains. And don't let the jargon scare you. This is just a way of looking at the entire life of your product, from the very first raw materials all the way to the end customer. It forces the team to look beyond their own factory walls. So now the questions on the board get even more specific. Okay, where do our raw materials actually come from? Maybe they realize their most important agricultural input comes from a region that's super water-stressed. And what happens to our product after it leaves us? Maybe their packaging isn't recyclable. You see, this starts to paint a full picture of their connection to nature, from beginning to end. And that brings us to the third and final filter, geography. This one is all about physical location, because you know what? Nature-related issues are almost always intensely local. So where on the map does your business actually touch the ground? So the team starts putting pins on a map. Where are our main factories? Where are our key suppliers? And then they connect it back to the money. How much of our spending is concentrated in each location? They might discover that their most critical plant is in a region that's projected to face severe flooding. And just like that, an abstract geographical fact turns into a very tangible business risk. By the end of this exercise, the picture is so much clearer and more focused. But all of this brainstorming, all these great ideas on a whiteboard, It's not just to create a long list of stuff. The real goal here is to produce something concrete. We're talking about a formal, actionable game plan for the entire project. And this is where all that talk turns into real action. The final document is called the Terms of Reference, and it captures that working hypothesis we just built. But it doesn't stop there. It sets a clear timeline with milestones. It names the actual people on the project team. It identifies where you have data, and just as important, where you don't. And crucially, it gets everyone to agree on a budget. This document becomes your single source of truth. It's the alignment tool that makes sure, before any serious resources get committed, that everyone, from the project team all the way up to senior leadership, is on the exact same page about the scope, the timeline, and the ultimate goal. So let's zoom out from that boardroom for just a second. Why does taking the time to create this initial plan matter so much? This quote from the TNFD guidance just says it all. The main goal is to create a shared internal understanding. In other words, it's about getting everybody in the boat rowing in the same direction with the same map before you even leave the shore. And that's really the ultimate takeaway here. This whole process isn't just some box-ticking exercise you have to do for a report. Scoping your nature-related issues is a powerful tool for strategic planning, for identifying risks no one saw coming, and for uncovering brand new opportunities. It is, quite simply, just smart business. So I'll leave you with this question to chew on. What hidden connections does your own business have with nature? You might just find that asking that question isn't just the first step in a compliance exercise. It might actually be the start of your next great strategy.